Richard Skipper celebrates. Every show is a celebration. Richard Skipper celebrates the best in entertainment. Each show, Richard delivers the artists you love, showcasing what makes them unique. Never gossipy. The antidote to a sometimes hectic world. Now, here's your host, Richard Skipper.
Happy Thursday, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Richard Skipper Celebrates. What are you celebrating today? For some of you, you may be celebrating Christmas. Some of you may be celebrating Festivus, Happy Festivus. Some of you may be celebrating nothing. Some of you may be celebrating the fact that some theaters are open. Whatever you're celebrating, find something to celebrate. For me, I'm celebrating Larry Blum, and I am so thrilled that he is here today. He has had such an eclectic career. He's done stage, television. He's been an escort. We'll talk about that in a moment, but in a proper way, I might add. But before we jump into this, Larry, I want to ask you, what are you celebrating today?
I'm just celebrating being here with you. I mean, what an honor you asking me to be on your show.
Well, I'm thrilled that you said yes. And I'm all about celebrating life, celebrating art, celebrating artists. And as I look at, I've been having so much fun looking over your career, all that you've done. You have a one-man show. We're getting a little bit of feedback there.
You know what it is? I tried to shut my phone off, and it's still on.
Okay.
Totally off.
Well, if your agent's going to call you in the middle of the show for a job, we'll leave it on. But you have a one-man show called Blink and You Might Miss Me.
Correct.
Why did you come up with that title?
Well, because, as you said, I have had an eclectic career. I've done a lot of things, and I've done a lot of television and stage and things. And you may not have noticed me because I'm usually standing behind the star or next to the star or, underneath the star, So you just, so I always say, unless I point it out during my show, I used to have a pointer and I would point to myself where I was in the scene. And then all of a sudden you go, oh, now I remember.
Well, Larry, I'd like to say that they're standing in front of you or they're standing beside you or they're just standing with you. So, but the fact is that you're there. I asked for a young photograph of you. I love this photograph that you sent, by the way, because I always like to go to the young self, because to me, that is the purest self. It's before the pressures of life start getting added onto you, before people start telling you who you should be or who you should not be. And I just love this picture. Here you are. And I love the expression on your face. Do you have any recollection?
No, I don't have any recollection of that moment. I don't. I really don't.
But can you tell us a little bit about who this little boy is, who he was, where you were living at the time, and the world that you were inhabiting or that was inhabiting you?
Well, I grew up in the Bronx in the 50s and with Jewish parents. They were actually loving, caring Jewish parents. And we lived in an apartment building.
Where in the Bronx did you live?
Gun Hill Road. I don't know if you know Gun Hill Road at all.
When I first came to New York, I come from a small town in South Carolina. And believe it or not, I ended up in the Bronx for my first 5 years in New York. and I lived at 205th Street and Hull Avenue.
Oh,
Very last stop on the D train.
right.
So trust me, I know the area that you grew up in.
I lived one block over on Decatur Avenue.
Yes, I know it very well.
Yeah, I grew up in a very loving family. And the thing that was interesting, we lived in an apartment building. We were on the third floor. My grandparents were on the second floor. My great-grandparents were across the street. My cousins and uncles were all in the apartment building or in the next building. So even though we lived in the city, I always had family around me.
Well, it's very interesting because in those days, I mean, I came to New York in 1979. New York was a very different world at that time, but especially where you were growing up, it was about family. Everybody knew everybody's business. If you got out of line, trust me, your parents knew about it before you did.
Totally.
So everybody was looking over everybody's shoulder. When did you first become aware of a world on the other side of the track, so to speak, on Manhattan, a world of theater, and starting to learn about that world that you wanted to become a part of?
I was very lucky because my parents loved entertainment and the theater, and they actually took me to Broadway shows from when I was about 12, 13 years old. So, I mean, we were always going into the city, even though it was going into Manhattan. And, we would always go see a Broadway show. I mean, my first Broadway show, you probably know, it was I Had a Ball with Buddy Hackett and Karen Morrow.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So I remember it like it was yesterday. And then,
Was that the first Broadway show that you...
That was the first Broadway show I ever saw. And I remember the second one was The Sign in Sidney Brustein's Window with Rita Moreno and Gabe Dell. And then, of course, I think the third show we saw was, it was The Law, Fiddler on the Roof.
Oh, well, yeah, of course.
With Zero and B.
But what was the show or what was the moment where you said, I want to be up there?
It was probably when I saw Maine with Angela Lansbury. She just blew me away. The whole production blew me away. I just was so enamored with that production, and Angela Lansbury just became obsessed with theater and wanting to be in show business.
Well, it's one thing, to have a family that loves entertainment, but it's another ball of wax when you say to your mom and dad, hey, I want to be up there doing that. What was the response from your parents when you said, this is the world I want to be a part of?
I was very lucky. I mean, like I said, I came from a very untypical Jewish family. I think I had just graduated college, 4 years of waste of my life, and was always going into the city on the weekends. And I went to my parents. I said, I want to get into show business, and I think I want to become a Broadway dancer. And they looked at me and they said, is that what you really want? And I said, yes. They said, go for it. We're behind you 100%.
That's wonderful. Now, do you have brothers or sisters?
I have an older sister. Her name is Sheila. She lives in Staten Island, and she's wonderful. But, she was, also, she went to high school, went to college, and, and got married and has 5 beautiful sons.
So how did it begin for you? I mean, did you know the ropes? I mean, for those of us, like when I came to New York, as I mentioned, I was told, get backstage, get show business. Those were the trade papers. You got them Thursday mornings. You went through with a red magic marker and you circled everything that you felt that you could be right for and some things that you weren't right for. But when did you know that?
I was 22 years old. I had gone to this wonderful Halloween party at the Rainbow Room at Rockefeller Center, and the cast of Pippin. I was obsessed with the show Pippin. I absolutely loved it. And the cast of Pippin was performing that night, and that night I met Christopher Chadman. I don't know if that name rings a bell.
Yes, of course. Now, how did you end up at that party?
It just, my really good friend Kenny, his name was Kenny Sasha, also a wonderful performer. He got us tickets and we went. So we went to this, party. We were doing all the gay things in New York City, and that was the place to be. And like I said, the Cast of Pippin was performing, and I had seen the show about 5 times, was obsessed with it, and met Christopher Chadman that night. And we ended up having a nice relationship for a little while. And we had very similar lives. He was also a Jewish boy from the Bronx.
Mm.
And then he took me to my first dance class.
Wow.
And I, after a few classes, I was told by the teacher, they said, what do you want to do with this? You have some potential. I said, I don't know, maybe become a dancer. And I buckled down and started taking 3 classes a day. And next thing I knew, I was working.
Now, had you had any experiences before you started taking those dance classes?
No, nothing. Not even in college. We had a very bad. I went to SUNY at Stony Brook in Long Island. Had a very bad theater program, so I didn't even take classes. It was just I was always going into the city, always hanging out with theater people and showbiz people, and just sort of tagged along and just sapped up everything I could get from everybody, and then jumped in.
How long did you were you taking dance classes before you felt that you were comfortable enough to start auditioning for things?
About a year. I started going to auditions. I went to every audition that I go to, even things I wasn't right for, just to get the nerves out. Because it was to sing and dance in front of somebody is like the scariest thing in the world. So so I would go to things that I was totally wrong for, didn't even want, just to get the experience. And I would, and eventually, I would get past the dancing part, and then I'd get to the singing, and then I'd get cut at the singing, and then I'd get past the singing part, and I'd get cut at, say, the acting part. And then and then it all clicked at once. The minute I got my first job, I got every job after that I auditioned for.
Well, before we get there, so, I mean, and God bless you. And I think this is a lesson for anyone listening out there who wants to do this. It was a very smart thing for you to do, just to get the comfortability, if there's such a word, in your bones of being able just to audition.
Yes.
And that was your goal.
Yes, totally. Just to be relaxed at an audition, because, to sing in front of a bunch of people sitting at a table or sitting in an empty theater is probably one of the worst experiences in the world. The voice that comes out of you is not your voice, But once you do it enough, the nerves just go away, and you're just, it just all of a sudden it comes out.
And I'm sure as you're doing this, obviously, not only are you getting comfortable doing this, but they're getting to know who you are as well.
True. Yeah, I made a lot of contacts. I had some funny situations later when I had gotten a couple of shows, and the choreographer, I'd say to them, you probably don't remember me, they said, yeah, I remember you in this audition. So.
No, that's really wonderful. And so what was the first show that you got, and what was that experience like for you when you got that first show? I'm going to go back up for a moment. There's a question that I ask a lot of people in this business. Was getting the equity card a goal for you?
Well, that's exactly what happened. We all used to borrow other people. I wasn't in equity. I would borrow a friend's equity card and sneak into equity auditions.
Very different.
Yes, it was what we used to do. And I remember going in, to one of the auditions. It was at Showcase Studios, I think on 8th around 56th Street. And it was for a show called Of Thee I Sing, which was going to be at the Berkshire Theater Festival, choreographed by Tony Stevens. And that was the first job I got. I don't know if you remember Tony Stevens.
Oh, of course, I know Tony Stevens. That's incredible.
He was amazing. What an amazing, amazing man. And so I auditioned for him, and he gave me my equity card.
Wow.
First show at the Berkshire Theater Festival up in Stockbridge, Massachusetts.
Well, let's talk about Tony Stevens for a moment. Incredible choreographer. What did you learn from Tony as your first great choreographer that he instilled in you as a choreographer, that you learned that you've carried throughout your career, both as a dancer and as a human being?
Just to, just to present yourself, to be strong. I was tall. I was about 5'11" at the time. Now I'm like 5'10". I've lost an inch. And he just said, be strong, show some character, and be yourself, and his style of jazz was exactly my style. And so, he had short legs and I have short legs. So, his choreography was all upper body and it was all strong. And I mastered it really well.
And what did you learn with it from that first production? Also, one thing that I am really a big proponent of is collaboration. So obviously, as a dancer, it's all about collaboration. So what did you learn on that first production about collaboration? And was this the first time that you were really, obviously in a dance class, you learned collaboration, but what did you learn about collaboration from that first production that you were in?
Well, the funny thing, the thing I really did learn was, how to work with other people, other chorus members. I was like the least experienced of all of them. Mm-hmm. And I had and I had the same situation many times later. I'd have some people that were very kind and giving and caring and, very supportive and encouraging. And there were other people who were just not so much, and my specific dance partner for that show wasn't very pleasant. And it was just, she made it impossible for me. But, what I learned was just to smile and be present and do the best I could do, and having a good attitude really helped.
And how long were you with that production before you started? I mean, and were you auditioning for other things while you were in?
It was a summer stock. It was a summer stock up in Stockbridge, Massachusetts at the Berkshire Theater Festival. So I think we rehearsed for about 2 weeks and then we did the show for about 2 weeks. So that was my first job. And then the second one, I ended up getting Milwaukee Melody Top.
Oh my God.
Well, working for, the incredible Marty Wiviet. I'm sure you know Marty.
Yes.
And I ended up.
Let's talk about some of those productions that you did at Melody Top.
Yeah. The first one I did was The Merry Widow with, it was supposed to be with Ann Blythe, but she canceled. We did with Richard Fredericks and Linda Michelle.
Yes.
And it was wonderful. And it just was, I learned a lot. And then the second one we did was How to Succeed in Business with Van Johnson, and got to love that man, and then the third one was Bye Bye Birdie with Lucy Arnaz.
Lucy Arnaz.
Yes. So I just, learning 3 shows in like 6 weeks was amazing. Just learning choreography, learning a show during the day, doing another show at night. It was the most wonderful education I ever had.
Well, I was so fortunate of the time that I arrived in New York because I came, that world doesn't exist anymore. We don't have, first of all, those kind of stars that go on the road like this anymore in the summers. What did you learn from doing this kind of summer stock? And have you kept in touch with, for example, Lucy Arnaz?
Well, Lucy is very good friends with a lot of my friends, and she lives in Palm Springs, and we're friends on Facebook. And she says hi, all the time, if we're in the same thread. And she is just one of the most amazing women in the world. She's so friggin' talented and such a nice person, and and very generous. And she was so fun to work with. So I just learned a lot from her. And her co-star was Michael Callan from West Side Story, and it just was just a wonderful learning experience. It really was.
Now, you did send me a video clip. One video clip was an AV file, which I was not able to upload, so I'm sorry about that. But the other clip, if you can tell us a little bit about the clip, I'll share this, and then we'll talk about this on the other side.
Okay.
Can you tell us about what we're about to see?
I'm not even sure which one it is.
Well, we'll watch it and then we'll talk.
Okay, that'll be good.
Here we are.
And the Oscar goes to For this rehearsal only.
For this rehearsal only.
For this rehearsal only.
For this rehearsal only.
I've been a stand-in on the Oscars since 1990. You know, I look forward to getting the call every year, and I'm just happy that I'm still a part of the family after 25 years.
So that was a little promotional video that the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences had made a couple of years ago, sort of highlighting, different parts of, the production, from rehearsal to, to the, after performances and everything. And so I was just, I had been a stand-in. When I moved to California, eventually I ended up becoming a stand-in on all the reality shows and all the award shows. And that was, I worked the Oscars straight. I've done it every year except for the year it was, canceled because of the pandemic. And I've just been a stand-in. I've been on the show as a performer. I've had some bits on the show, and I've also been a stand-in, which is what they do is people don't realize when there's a live show, like an award show, mm-hmm. or a reality show, say like American Idol or Dancing with the Stars, they rehearse the show for 3, 4, 5 days with actors, and we're called rehearsal actors. And we rehearse the show. So the cameraman, the director, the people that come in to present, so everybody can rehearse the show. So when you see the show live, sometimes it doesn't look like it's been rehearsed, but it has been rehearsed for 3, 4, 5 days. So that's what I did for many years. I was a rehearsal actor.
How did that begin for you? And I mean, first of all, obviously you're good at what you do. And people may think there's not a science to it, but there is. Obviously, you know what you're doing, and you're unobtrusive. That's very important. It's like being an extra on a set.
Exactly.
There's a lot that goes into it, because I've done a lot of that myself. You have to be at the top of that game as well. And
right.
Again, I get blink and you might miss me, but it's a very important job.
Yeah, it's just, I just happened to work with a couple of stage managers that were, going over when the medium started. I remember American Idol, I think, was the first reality show that happened, that I was working on a soap opera, and I was called to work again on another day. And then I got a call to work on the show called American Idol. And nobody knew what it was, but I just had this feeling that it might be an interesting thing. So they just bring in actors, people that can get up and pretend they're the presenter or the nominee, and rehearse the show. So so everybody knows what to expect when the show goes live. And I just that I have good improv skills, and just felt very comfortable being on a stage, and and I'm not shy in front of the camera, as you can tell.
Well, obviously, I mean, is there any area of show business that you have not worked in?
Well, I haven't. At one point when I had hurt my knee, and I was going to look into other options and stuff. And I thought at one time to become like maybe a stage manager. I thought, I actually had a couple of friends that were in Evita. It was at the Schubert here in Los Angeles, pre-Broadway. And they were looking for a second assistant stage manager. And like 5 of my friends were in the show, and they all asked the main stage manager, whose name shall remain nameless, if we could hire me, because they felt like I was a dancer, I would know some of the things they needed, and this and that, and would help me transition. And he didn't want anybody. He wanted somebody, more experienced, which ended up being a blessing, because then I stayed in the business and ended up, doing stand-in work and background work and U5 work, and just, found other opportunities in front of the camera.
I want to talk about some of the different areas that you have worked in. You've appeared on The Dating Game.
Yes.
What was that experience like?
Well, the reason we did it, and because it was a paid SAG-AFTRA job. So, it was just another job. It was, something keep up my health insurance. You know, you made a certain amount of money, you still make a certain amount of money and you get your health insurance. So, you know, I had somebody who recommended me for the show, and I found out they paid like $5,000 just to sit there. And so I went, you know, to the audition. It was the last season of Jim Lang, which was kind of interesting. And what people didn't realize was every time they would repeat that show, I'd get a residual. So and they kept repeating my show a lot because the first segment, I was in the second segment of the show. The first segment had Pee Wee Herman on. He appeared on it a number of times in character.
That's right.
And so when his movie came out and he became, you know, a household word, they kept repeating my episode, and I kept getting money and money and money. And I had my health insurance for like 5 years in a row without having to, you know, to kill myself again. So that's why I did the dating game. It was just for the money, and I did win.
Well, good for you. And what was that experience like of winning?
Well, it was great to win, except, you know, the funny thing was all my friends used to, you know, it was like, you know, came out, and when they had told us that, you know, the trips at this point, it was the last season, were going to be terrible. You know, it would be like a show downtown or maybe a dinner in Santa Barbara. And so they said, don't expect much. And then when they said you won Mexico City, I got excited and started jumping up and down like a little girl. And people, whenever I show that clip in my one-man show, people scream. They scream because I go from being this like little macho guy to being this like girly thing. And the best part of the thing was that we picked a date to go to Mexico City, and she was unavailable. So I got to choose someone who I wanted, and it had to be of the opposite sex. I couldn't take my boyfriend at the time. So I took my dear friend, and you may know her, Patty Colombo.
Oh, yes, of course.
Patty. So Patty and I went on the trip together.
Oh my God! You were able to bring your boyfriend separately on that trip?
No,
You were not.
I did get a taste of some of the Mexican delicacies in Mexico City.
But, you know, speaking of that, you did also work on a porn film.
Yes, yeah, and that's another job. You know, as I was waiting for things to happen, I had a friend who I knew from New York, and he was the production accountant on a porno film. And he said, you know, would you like to come? There isn't a lot of money, but you get a lot of experience. And I was treated so poorly on that film because the only experience I got was doing laundry and driving the porn stars around. But it was fun. It was fun to visually watch.
But the thing is, I mean, and later on, it led to a one-man show that was very successful. Your reviews, by the way, are phenomenal. It's taken you around the world, that show.
Yes, it did.
Performed on cruise ships and Palm Springs and every major resort area in the country. Have you brought the show to New York?
I did. I did it for a week in New York. I did it at a space. It was on 42nd Street. It's one of those theaters that are down by 9th Avenue. It was brought in by a guy named Brandon Voss. I don't know if that
Yes, I do.
Brandon produced me in New York, and I did really well. And, you know, I got good reviews in New York also. And it was fun. You know, I got my whole family got to see it. My mother and father were still alive, and my sister came. Yeah. So it was nice. It was nice bringing the whole thing full circle.
So when I also, a few years ago, you know, created a one-man show. As you were putting together a one-man show, obviously you want to make it as entertaining as possible. I want to ask you, from your point of view, so many things happen in a person's life. How did you decide to shape the show? There are so many aspects to what you've done. How do you choose to edit what you're going to put in, what you're going to leave out? I'm sure you had a great director.
That was the key. The key was my director, Stan Zimmerman, who is the most wonderful, talented man in the world. I mean, he's a writer. He was a producer of the Golden Girls for many years, and someone introduced us, and he loved the material. But when he got it and he brought me in, he said, "You're going to have to listen to everything I say." And he shaped the whole thing. You know, I wrote everything. I wrote every word, but he would go, "That opening needs to be tighter. You need to have more of your family in it. You need to have more of this. So I'd go home and I'd rewrite it and bring it back to him, and he'd go, "That's good. Now you need a little more in, the transition, telling this story or something. I need a little more. I need to know what this is about." So he literally pulled the show out of me. He really did.
What surprised you the most about yourself, you putting together this show?
Well, the thing that surprised me the most was that, because I do have intense stage fright, that I was able to get up there. And that's a funny story, because I was so nervous the first couple of times I did it. I was ready to throw up. So I actually went to see a hypnotist, and I went to see him twice, and he put this whole thing in my head that these are my words, this is my life. That just be comfortable saying whatever comes out of your mouth. Nobody knows what's truth, what's not, what is, what isn't, except you. And once I had that suggestion in my head, I was able to get up there without any nerve at all. The whole time I was just comfortable on stage, and just got out there and just did it.
Had you always had stage fright, or were you having stage fright because you were literally appearing, if you'll pardon the expression, naked on stage? You were appearing as yourself and not another character.
I always would freak out. Just that, it's that, I guess that old actor's, nightmare, that you'd get up there and you'd forget the line and you wouldn't know what it was. And I always had that feeling like I wasn't going to know what the next line was going to be. I even had it with a chorus line. When I did a chorus line, I had like maybe 10 lines in the whole show. And it was right after Diana sings Nothing. So the whole time while Diana's singing Nothing and we're off stage, I would go over my 10 lines. I would repeat them and repeat them and repeat them. I knew it like the back of my hand, but I would just have to say it out loud before I said it out loud.
There was one moment, I was doing a show once, and I came out on stage, and the moment I hit my spot on the stage, my brain went completely blank. I couldn't even remember my name. And it's the scariest feeling in the world. You see the faces of the audience. As soon as I heard my cue, however, it was all there, and I was able to go with that. You talk about stage fright. Was that the scariest, moment that you've ever had on stage?
Yeah, pretty much, I think. Yeah. That was pretty much the scariest thing. I had a couple of things where, I was performing and I did, some sort of drop to the floor and come up, and all of a sudden I heard a little creak in my knee or my foot. I did dislocate my left ankle many years ago at the Oscars. Excuse me one second. At the Oscars one year, I was going down the stairs and I fell and I twisted my left ankle.
Oh my God.
Forgive me. I'm fighting a little bit of a cold. And so, I dislocated my left ankle and ended up at Cedars-Sinai Hospital, and then went back and did the show.
Wow. It's amazing what we do.
Yes. Totally.
And I want to ask you, what would you say, in your career, and maybe this is addressed in your show, the lowest point in your career, and what got you through it? Is it faith? Is it resilience? Is it the people that you know in your life? What gets you through those low moments?
Oh, I don't know. I'm trying to think. I've been, I've had situations where I was, like replaced, sort of let go for no fault of my own. There were a couple of situations. It's happened a couple of times where, you'd be doing something and all of a sudden, the producer's cousin now wants to do it. And I don't know. I just sort of, I'm really good at sort of not thinking about the negative, just being positive, and just, seeing the positiveness of every situation and moving forward with that. that was the one thing, you know, I've always been very lucky. And that was mostly the theme of my show, was that, you know, I was a fly on the wall. You didn't notice me that much, but I had so much fun doing it.
And what are you currently working on? What keeps you, I mean, obviously, I mean, you love this business. This business loves you. What keeps you motivated now?
Well, I don't know, you know, that's a good question. You know, I'm enjoying sort of being semi-retired. I like when I get a call to do something. I've actually turned down a bunch of jobs in the last couple of months. I really don't want to work long hours anymore. A couple of shows I worked on were, you know, 11, 12-hour days, and they're killers, you know. But I recently worked on The Masked Singer, which is airing. I think it just finale'd, but we filmed it like 3 months ago. And it's a wonderful show to work on. Everybody's great to work with, and so that's what I've been working on. And I still work on the soap operas. Last week I did 2 General Hospitals, and I love working General Hospital. The soap operas, they're everybody's family. I've been on all these shows for so many years. You know, everybody on the crew and in the cast, they're like family to me. So,
well, I mean, you worked on All My Children, and I know that some of my friends that are watching are huge All My Children fans. Why do you think that All My Children did not survive when a show such as General Hospital did? I mean, because All My Children had such an intense fan base that I can't understand why.
I don't know. I think it was the writing. I think the writing just didn't sustain. You know, it just, for some reason, you know, all the soap operas, they go through multiple producers and stuff. The people that have been producing General Hospital are the same people for the last few years, have been wonderful. And I think it had just something to do with the writing staff. I just think the stories just weren't really catching people anymore, you know, and I that's the only thing I could say, because, you know, I watched it up until the end and everything, you know, and now I watch, you know, General Hospital every day and Young and the Restless. And, you know, and the writing's incredible on those shows. So, you know, they just keep your interest. And Days of Our Lives, of course. I love Days of Our Lives.
Well, obviously, you've seen a lot of changes in this business, and looking back over the arc of the career that you've had and the business itself changing, what are the things that you've seen change tremendously in the business that you really like about the changes? And what are things that you've seen change in the business that you really have a hard time accepting?
Well, the thing that I like the most is, because, you know, when the show is together, it's efficient. You know, like I said, I don't enjoy being on a set 11, 12 hours. I love getting there. I love being booked. I love when I get a call and they ask me to work, and I can't wait to get there. And, you know, and now the thing that's so, you know, is, you know, you have to, with the COVID testing and, you know, all the protocol to get in, and, you know, and you wear a mask whenever you're not on camera, you know, everyone's wearing masks. So that's uncomfortable. I'm not enjoying that. I do like that, you know, the shows are efficient. You know, I can work on General Hospital and I can be in 12 scenes and be out in 2 hours. You know, it's just, everybody knows what they're doing. You know, the camera people know what they're doing. The stage managers are perfection. The cast is always line perfect now, you know, so just, it's efficient. I love the efficiency of it.
Well, what was your calendar like when everything started to shut down a year and a half plus, when COVID started just taking over this country?
Well, luckily, The Masked Singer was in the middle of filming, and they filmed. They actually did like 2 seasons in 1 season, and the thing that was great about it was that, you know, they got, you know, COVID protocol in immediately. We were tested every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, sometimes on Saturday. So we were tested 2, 3, 4 times a week.
So you're saying that they were being started the test.
They were filming all during the pandemic.
Wow.
They filmed at a studio. It's called Red Studios. It's the old Renmar Studios on Cahuenga. And it's where we used to do the Golden Girls. And it's 8 blocks from my house. So it's 8 blocks from my house. We would start maybe at 9:30. They'd have a lovely breakfast for us. Then we go in, we rehearse. We'd have a lovely lunch, and we'd be finished about 3. And I'd go home. It was just a beautiful show to work.
And looking back over the past year and a half plus, the months just run together in my head. What are things that you've learned about yourself going through COVID that you feel that you will be carrying through after this? I mean, obviously, a lot of us have learned many things about ourselves over the last year and a half. What have you learned about you?
Well, the thing is, living through the 90s, the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and losing probably every one of my friends to AIDS, so I never thought in our lifetime we'd have another sort of epidemic, so we learned how to take care of ourselves, the community. I'm sure you know all about it, during the thing, and I had come from New York. So I had all my friends in New York and all my friends in LA and all the friends on the road. So there was a lot that I learned, back in the 90s. So when this thing happened, it's just like, I can't believe there's another thing. So I just kind of applied that principle, always checking in on friends, always making sure that everybody's okay. And said I was very lucky working on The Masked Singer. I had work, I was being tested, so I knew everything was fine. I just kept moving forward and just, sort of keeping it alive.
Larry, do you mind if I visit that period with you? Because I lived through that as well in New York. I came to New York, like I said, in 1979. New York was changing a lot before. And then all of a sudden, this bombshell. We didn't have social media, obviously, at that time. So we would hear about people passing through, running into someone at a bar or at a club. Were you doing a show at the time when you started first hearing about the crisis? And if you can take us back to that time frame and the feeling of what New York was like at that time.
Well, I
don't remember.
I was kind of out of New York because I was on the road, with, a chorus line from 77 and 78. And then I came back in September of 78 and then moved, in January 79, moved to Los Angeles. So I kind of sort of missed it by being on the road. And then I moved to LA. So it was sort of, drawing back a little bit to my friends in New York. And then, it came to LA a little bit later. So so I was prepared. So it was not a great time. It was, I lost every one of my dear friends, yeah. I'm one of the few guys that, that I was on the line with that's still around, and so it's just all that. My best friend was a guy named Kenny Sasha, who I told you about, and I lost him in 93, and I lost my lover in 96.
I'm sorry.
So, it was just omnipresent. It was just part of your life. It was, cooking for people, going to houses and cleaning, visiting them in the hospital, taking them to doctor's appointments. And then the worst thing, of course, was if someone passed away, going to the house before the family showed up and trying to clear out, all the stuff that, to try to make it less, to degay it a little bit for
I know. And, this is something that a lot of people don't realize. I had couples that had been together for years, who family members would come in and start like breaking things up, making things. And it was just a really sad, horrible time. But so thanks for, talking about that. But you also were on the road a lot. You mentioned that. Yeah. Did you enjoy being on the road? And when
loved
go ahead.
I loved it. I loved sort of, being the new face in town, and I always tell people when we were the first international, I was in the international company of Chorus Line. We were the first ones that would hit every sort of, major city in the United States, and I played Canada too. So, it was like we'd show up and, and I'd say, what respectable queen hadn't seen a chorus line opening night? So, I'd go out to a bar, like, on the second night, and, and I could see people whispering and go, oh, he's the one from a chorus line. He's the one from a chorus, I was a little bit of a celebrity, so it was nice.
And you were, if you'll pardon the expression, you were the belle of the ball.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. But, I was, I remember, I was in South Carolina when A Chorus Line came out, and my next door neighbor was a summer neighbor, and she would come over with the latest cast recordings. And she came over, and I've told Donna McKechnie this story, who has become a good friend. And she came over and we sat down to listen to A Chorus Line. And I will never forget hearing those first chords of music and just being so excited, because that cast recording really picked up the excitement of that. When did you first hear about A Chorus Line? And I want to hear about the trajectory that led you to being in the show.
Well, I was taking dance class, and I had a couple of friends in the class that had seen it at the Public Theater, and they came in and they said, oh my God, you have to go see this show. It's down at the Public Theater. You're going to die. It's, the best thing you've ever seen. And I remember getting tickets. It was $7.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I actually sat on the stairs because it was sold out. But the funny thing is, the first time the show has got so much, there's so much to it. The first time I didn't get it all. I mean, it just went so fast, that I remember I had to see it 2-3 more times to really start loving the show, because there was so much texture to it and so much detail, which I eventually learned. And I do have one thing that I'm very proud of. I was the last person that Michael Bennett personally directed into the show.
Wow.
Yes. And the only reason I was that was because I was hired in Washington, D.C. And I was learning the show in Washington, D.C. And I was opening it in Philadelphia. And since Philadelphia, back in those days, Philadelphia and Boston were the two out of town places. And, and he wanted the show to get incredible reviews, and so he personally came in and redirected everybody. And I was, I wasn't in the show yet, but I had to sit at his side as he was directing everybody. And then we did an understudy rehearsal. I was considered an understudy then. They made you an understudy before you got the part. And he gave us approval for me to go on in Philadelphia.
Wow. And what was that experience like, that first night that you went on in A Chorus Line?
I honestly, I don't remember it at all.
It must have just been an out-of-body experience.
Yeah, I don't remember. I honestly don't remember that first performance. But the show, the hardest part is like hitting your mark. People don't realize, how specific, you go from, the stage number 4.5 to 5.5, and then you go up to the third wing, and then you go down to the second wing, and everything is very, and you're dealing with 17 people on the line, fitting in with just one little space, and all that thing. I mean, the hardest thing was at the end. Greg is very downstage during the alternative scene. He's when they're talking about their lives. And then, and then you have to sort of go into the line again. And so I had to, go left and then back up and, and go right into my spot without having to look down on where I was. So just to feel it and this and that, that was one of the hardest things, was just to sort of stay, in the moment and get back into the line.
And I want to ask you, if you could go back and just relive one particular moment in your career again, what one moment would you like to live over again?
Probably the most exciting moment in my life was, we haven't really touched on it, but from being a stand-in on the shows, I eventually became the escort, and what happened was, on all the award shows, Dick Clark used to love having a man in a tuxedo take the women, escort them to the stage, so they wouldn't, trip like, say, Jennifer Lawrence did at the Oscars that one year when she went up to the stage, But on the Golden Globes and the Emmys and the daytime Emmys, they would always have, a talent escort helping them up to the stage. And the most exciting moment of my life was when Susan Lucci won her Emmy after 19 tries. It was her 19th win, and I was crouched down, and I loved all my children. Love Susan Lucci. She is like my goddess. I absolutely adore Susan Lucci, as I'm sure you do too.
Oh yes, of course.
And I was crouched in front of her, and Rosie O'Donnell was sitting next to her.
Oh, I remember.
And Rosie looked at me, and I had known Rosie from a little bit. And she looked at me and she crossed her fingers. I crossed my fingers, and then, and then Shamar, the streak is over, the diva herself, Susan Lucci. And we all just got so excited. And, there I was at the bottom, and she was shaking, and I took her to the stage and just held her. And, and I've since have, been with her a couple of times, and she always goes, Larry, I don't remember that experience at all either. But that was one of the most exciting moments of my life, when Susan Lucci won the daytime Emmy.
Now, we did rehearse this, but that's what I meant when I said he was an escort. So we're going to wrap things up in a moment, but I always end the shows with my homage to James Lipton inside the Actors Studio. So I've got some random questions just for the fun of it. So let's have some fun with this. And the first question is, what was the largest debt that you ever ran up in your career?
Ooh, I never ran up a debt in my career. I unfortunately came from a family that had no money, and we always went without. And I always swore that I was never going to have any kind of bill. I have never had what do you call it, when I've always paid my credit card when it comes in. I've never paid a fee on anything, so I've never run up a debt.
I love that. That's wonderful. What do you feel that you have been most appreciated for in your career?
I think the thing I'm most appreciated for is that I kind of love helping my friends. So like if there's like the possibility of somebody getting into a show or getting on a show, or I love being able to recommend friends and share the fun that I have with everybody.
That's wonderful. What is the youngest age that you feel that someone should go into this business?
Ooh, that's a hard one, because, you always hear those stories about child actors and stuff. I would say maybe 16, 18, have your childhood, have your fun. There's nothing like friends and family and because, you still can have it all, hopefully, we'll live to, as long as Bob Hope did and George Burns to 100 and
God willing. Do you dream when you sleep?
Yes, I do. I do dream. I dream a lot. For some reason, I'm dreaming a lot lately.
Mm-hmm.
A
lot of people are. I'm hearing a lot about a lot of dreams. What is the most valuable way that you spend your day?
Just I like to exercise. So I go to the gym. I probably go to the gym 5-6 times a week, and I love hiking. I love going. I live in Los Angeles, and I love going up Runyon Canyon. I love going up Outpost Drive. I just love hiking. I love the exercise. I like being outdoors, and I just love passing beautiful homes, and I just like the outdoors. So that's what I like to do.
That's great. How do you plan ahead with your career? Are you ambitious in terms of how you map out your career, or
no? I mean, not at all. I mean, everything that sort of happened to me, I was present for, but sort of, I feel like I'm the luckiest person in the world. I mean, all the opportunities I got, I felt were just lucky things, you know, getting a chorus line, you know, I just happened to be there at the right time when they needed a new Gregory Gardner, and, you know, and same thing, you know, getting the escort thing on the award shows, you know, it was just like, but he said, well, let Larry do it, you know, he can handle those stairs, and I had a tuxedo, you know, and so I just feel like I'm just the luckiest man in show business, you know.
That's wonderful. Thank you. What one thing do you wish that you had done differently in your career?
I probably would have started earlier. I would have maybe taken some dance classes when I was in my earlier teens. I didn't start taking dance classes till I turned 22. Wow. So I would have maybe started more like 17, 18. I would have liked that, you know, and more ballet.
Okay. Okay. And did you ever worry your parents while you were growing up?
You know, I never did. You know, I was always like a good kid. They were good to me. I was good to them. I never really, you know, I didn't do drugs. I didn't do any of that stuff. So I was a good kid. They were good parents, and I was surprisingly a good kid.
That's great. And this is my last question for you. Who is the one entertainer in the past that you wish that you could have seen live on stage?
Well, that's a good one. You know, I was lucky enough to see Judy Garland twice.
Wow.
So that, you know, that was one of the things I was blessed with. We used to go to the Brooklyn Color Studio and see the taping of the Sammy Davis Show, and she was the guest twice. So I got to see Judy, and I wished I had seen. This is the thing. I wished I had seen Barbra Streisand when I was younger. I mean, I've seen her many times more recently, but that young Barbra Streisand, you know, at the Bonsoir,
yeah,
or in Central Park, I had opportunities and I passed them up, and I've always regretted not doing that. I did get to, when Bette started, I got to see Bette at the Baths and followed her at the beginning, and that was my MO, was that I wasn't going to miss anything that Bette did because I missed all of Barbara's early stuff.
Wow. Well, good for you. Well, I'm glad that you joined me today, and don't go anywhere for a moment. I want to thank everybody who showed up today. I know that I can speak for Larry when I say this. Those of us in this business do not take it lightly when you show up. So thank you for being here. If this is your first time here, I hope that it won't be your last time. My show is all about celebrating artists and their body of worth. If this is your first time, please check out all the other artists that I've celebrated. There's a button on Richard Skipper Celebrates on YouTube, and you can click on it. It says, join in the celebration. If you click on that button, it will let you know anytime I go live. Please leave a comment here on YouTube. Share this video with your followers, and please check out Larry anytime you see his name pop up anywhere. Follow him on Facebook. You don't mind my saying that, do you, Larry?
No, not at all.
Yes, keep up with what he's doing. I also end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. Go to your Facebook friends list and go to the 5th name that pops up and reach out with a phone call. Not an email message, not a text message, not a private inbox message, a phone call. And let that person know what they mean to you. Because as our dear friend David Friedman says, we're all in this together, but we're not in the same boat. And I always say, if you're going to go out in a boat, make sure you bring a skipper along. And I'm going to leave the screen, Larry, and I'm going to give you the final word. Anything you want to say about anything that we talked about today that you want to expound upon? Anything that we didn't talk about that you wish we had? Or just any message that you want to put out to anyone who's watching right now? Don't worry about how to end the show. As soon as you say goodbye, I will take you off the screen. Thank you for the gifts that you've given to the world and that you're going to continue to give. And happy holidays. Thanks for being here. Thank you.
I just want to thank Richard for inviting me on the show. He was so wonderful to be around. Like I said before, I just feel very lucky to have always done what I wanted to do, to make money at it, to be happy at it, and to be able to share it with my friends and family. And just, if you have a dream and you want to fulfill it, go for it. And, just enjoy the ride. Take care, stay healthy, and enjoy your life. And thank you. Good night.